Carlynne Hershberger has not seen much of the happier side of adoption in her life. She got pregnant at 19 and was sent off to go through her pregnancy and give birth in secret in classic baby scoop era fashion. She felt ill-informed, and when she returned to her family after leaving a daughter behind, her life was never the same. Find out more about her journey and what she thinks would help birth mothers today in this episode of Adoption Uncovered. Hi there. I would love it if you would start by introducing yourself and starting wherever you are comfortable with telling us your connection to adoption.
Okay, my name is Carlynne Hershberger, and I am a first mother, natural mother, multiple names for that. My daughter is 43 years old, so this happened to me back in the late 70s, and I was 19 when I got pregnant and 20 when she was born. And in my situation, I was unmarried and the father was not to be found. He was out of the picture before I found out I was pregnant. So there was no hope of that happening. And I couldn't find him pre-internet days. I didn't know where he was. So it's a little more difficult to find people then. So I came back home. I had been in college and I came back home and told my parents and was informed that I would not be allowed to bring a baby back to the house. And I was raised very strict Catholic. And so when I did come back and that was the situation, everything was arranged for me. I grew up in a very strict, rigid household. And at the time, I was very naive and young and didn't have the strength to fight back and say, no, this is not what I want. So everything was done. I was locked up in the house. As soon as I started showing, I wasn't allowed to be seen anywhere. It was a big secret. None of the family was allowed to know. And a lot of my family lived out of state at the time. So there was nobody local who would have found out if I didn't say anything. So because they wanted to keep this big secret, I was sent away 2 hours out of town to live with a stranger that was, and this was all arranged through the Catholic Church. This was all Catholic social services. And so I was sent to meetings with the social worker. All these meetings were arranged for me. Everything was done for me, and I was informed of what I was going to do. So I was sent to live with this woman, Myrtle, in a town 2 hours away from home, and left there for the duration of the pregnancy. And when I was 6 months pregnant, Catholic Social Services had me sign a paper giving them custody of my baby at birth. But what I found, I didn't find that out until just a few years ago. I didn't remember signing that. I had no memory of it. It was like I was on autopilot during that time period and had shut down and didn't want to deal with anything. And so I have a lot of memory gaps. It's very strange. I've been diagnosed with complex PTSD. And so you have memory gaps, and then you have some memories that are so strong, they're like they happened yesterday. So that's basically what happened. I had no memory of signing this thing. And then later, as I was researching more about the history of adoption, I looked into the Florida statutes about that time period from 1979, 1980, and found out that what they did was illegal. So they had no business having me sign that consent. And they did that because they told me not to see my baby when she was born. When she was born, I wasn't allowed to see her, wasn't allowed to hold her, wasn't told the sex of the baby I had just given birth to. She was taken out of the room instantly, so I couldn't see anything or hear anything. And that was it. I had no memory of seeing her except one little arm waving from the blanket as she was taken out of the room, and that was it. So I had no memory of signing that, but that's what they did. That's what the Catholic Church did at that time. And many years later, the social worker that was dealing with my case actually came to my workplace and apologized to me and said, I am so very sorry for the barbaric way that you were treated back then. So there were people that knew what was happening. And, the baby scoop era that I'm sure you're familiar with now, a lot of folks say ended in 1973. And the reason I started telling my story was it happened to me in 1979. So it didn't just end abruptly with Roe v. Wade. It kept going for decades beyond that because it's happened to a lot of mothers. That was the beginning. That's how it started. That's what happened.
And how did that keep popping up for you over the years? Because that doesn't really end it when you say goodbye.
Oh, no. No, 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 no. It was 22 years of not knowing where she was, what had happened to her. I liken it to a kidnapping because you spend 22 years searching faces everywhere, searching. I'd see a little girl who looked to be 7, 8, 9 years old, and I'd wonder, is that my daughter? It's a horrific thing to do to a mother. Absolutely horrific.
How did you end up reconnecting?
Oh, I searched for her. I searched. Later on, I got married. I had 2 more children, and they kept me getting up in the morning. And then when my son was about 12, that's when I told my kids, my son and my youngest daughter, I told them about their older sister. Over the course of the years, because it had been kept secret for so long, people would ask me, how many children do you have? And I was so conditioned to lie that I would say 2, but inside I was screaming, no, I have 3 children, but I'm not allowed to talk about it, you know? So that was very, very difficult. Having the kids, they got upset, but excited to find her. They were upset for what I had to go through, but they wanted to find her just as much as I did. So we started searching. I started joining registries online, and nothing happened. I joined several and just nothing happened. So I finally got up the courage to contact Catholic Social Services and called them. Now, I had been warned in the online groups at this point that don't tell Catholic Social Services that you're searching because they'll shut you down. So I never mentioned that. They said, all you need to do is say you want to put medical information in the file for your daughter to find out later. So I called the office where I had given birth and signed the paperwork and told them that that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to put medical information in my daughter's file. It just so happened that the wonderful lady that answered the phone asked me, but do you want to search for her? I love doing searches. So I was like, are you kidding me? That was totally unexpected. I did not expect to hear that from the office. So I said, yes, I want to search. And so this was when she was 21, I believe. I had started searching as soon as she turned 18. Because one of the things that they tell you when you're a first mother is do not look for your child before they're 18 because you'll destroy their life. You'll absolutely destroy them if you try to find her, So this is closed. You're not supposed to know anything. You cannot look for her. It would damage her too much. So of course I believe that and thought, well, I don't want to do anything to interfere with her life. So I waited till she was 18 to start searching. And then when she was 21, I contacted the agency and they finally tracked her down. It took about 6 months. And so she was born in Florida, but her family had moved her out of state. So they tracked her down and sent her a letter. And she didn't know really what that was about, thought it might be junk or, solicitation for fundraising or whatever. So she tossed it and never opened it. And so a few more weeks go by and nothing happens. So Jenny at the agency sent another letter. And when my daughter got a second one, she thought, well, maybe I should open that. And it turns out that's what it was. Just a letter informing her that your mother is looking for you. So that's how we reconnected. So she was 22.
What was her reaction to that?
I flew up to visit her and we met at the airport for the first time. And of course, there was blubbering and sobbing and all of that. And her adoptive family was there at the airport with flowers waiting for me. They were very welcoming. So that was good. And so we had our reunion on her birthday weekend. And then later on, she came down here. She was a bridesmaid, a maid of honor in my youngest daughter's wedding. And so all of that, yeah. So we reconnected, and I have more grandchildren and now 2 great grandchildren.
The baby scoop era started after World War II ended and continued into the 1970s. The psychology of the time proposed that single mothers were morally flawed, and the best thing for single pregnant women to do was to give birth to their babies and pass them off to a married couple as soon as possible. Pregnant women were often hidden away and isolated before the baby came. Then the baby was taken from them and they were dumped back into their daily lives. Carlynne gave birth toward the end of this time period, but was subjected to the full baby scoop experience. Time has passed since Carlynne felt she wasn't given any choice but to leave her daughter in someone else's care, but she still feels the current generation of birth mothers is not given all the space they need to make the right decision for their lives and their babies.
So the secrets is what are so damaging, so incredibly damaging. In my case, of course, family support would have been the thing that I needed, and that's what's not happening now. The coercion of the agencies is huge and is still happening. What we needed back then was not to be shamed. We just needed support. And that was the whole thing, was we were shamed into disappearing. Make her just go away. And it's about money. So that was just the way to do it. And since Roe v. Wade, and since things have changed and single motherhood is more accepted, things have changed, but not enough. There's still not support for single moms. There's still not support for childcare. There's still not support for healthcare. There's a lot of things that need to be done. I think one of the things that the industry could do now is eliminate pre-birth matching, for one thing, because that is, to me, in my mind, one of the biggest problems. It should be illegal, in my opinion.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, about what that is and what the alternative would be?
Pre-birth matching is putting together an expectant mother with a potential couple that wants to adopt. And they form a connection, they form a bond. And that's the whole goal that the agency has. They want that mom to bond with this couple so that she feels obligated then to hand over her newborn. She would be guilted into changing her mind. And that right there is the biggest problem. And that's why I don't like the term birth mother, because that's how agencies psychologically prepare expectant mothers for that role in just surrendering or relinquishing. Because if they call you a birth mother from the time you know you're pregnant, then that's just grooming you to be part of their system. And so that's why I don't like that term, birth mother. So, but yeah, there's a lot that the industry needs to do to change. And pre-birth matching is the biggest one, in my opinion, because there's no reason, none whatsoever. If a mom has a baby and 3 months down the road says, I can't handle this, I don't want to do it, I don't want to be a mother, I want to relinquish this child for adoption, then fine. That mother made an informed choice. But if she is just coerced and her infant is taken at birth, like what happened to me, then she doesn't have that connection to that baby. She hasn't bonded, but that baby bonded with her. That baby knows that woman's voice, her heartbeat, the sound of her smell. That infant knows that mother. And to remove that baby from the mother, to me, is just trauma and abuse to a child. So let a mother spend time with her baby first. Let them spend weeks together. A couple can always be found later. If that child needs care outside the family, a couple can be found at any time. They're always out there. But the mom needs support, and that baby needs support first. And then she can make an informed decision. But the way it happens now, it's not informed consent.
One group that exists to help give birth mothers the support they need when making the decision about whether to keep their baby is called Save Our Sisters. Carlynne explains what they do and how groups like them can help make sure birth mothers are heard and supported.
What are some other ways that if we happen to find a first mother in that situation, how can she be supported? Like, what would you have preferred, and what should we try to build up to support first mothers?
That's actually being done right now with an organization called Saving Our Sisters. And that was started by a friend of mine here in Florida who experienced the same thing I did. She lost her son to adoption, an infant adoption. And she realized what she needed as support. So she started an organization, SOS, Saving Our Sisters. And the volunteers in the organization are called Sisters on the Ground. So when she hears of a woman who is pregnant, dealing with an adoption agency, but wants to change her mind and is afraid and doesn't know how to go about that, they can contact Saving Our Sisters, and then SOS puts a sister on the ground to meet with her and helps her through the process. They've raised funds to help pay rent, to secure baby items that are needed. They've helped with legal issues. They've helped when agencies actually threaten a mom after she revokes her consent, because some states still have a revocation period, but some states don't. My state does not have a revocation period. Once you sign, that's it. There is no revocation. So some states are like that now, and that's thanks to the National Council for Adoption, because they really push those policies that make it harder for a mom to get her baby back. So when she does revoke the consent within her time period allowed by that state, sometimes the agencies will still come after them and threaten them with lawsuits, threaten them with bills for any expenses they've covered, threaten them with CPS. They've been threatened with child services being called on them. So that's terrifying for a new mother, absolutely terrifying. So the Sisters on the Ground and SOS is able to help those women. They've saved many families from being separated. And that's the kind of thing that we need. It started grassroots, and now it's going all over the place. They have Sisters on the Ground in, I think, most states now.
One outlet for Carlynne, as she has been working through adoption-related trauma, has been art. Carlynne has been able to use her career to help other people see adoption from a birth mother's perspective.
Can you talk a little bit about how your art helps you express these important issues?
I've always been an artist, and I'm a professional artist. That's the only job I've ever really loved. And going through the trauma of losing my child and basically dealing with a kidnapping situation for 22 years, there's a lot of trauma there. So there's a lot of emotion, and raising other children, like I said, they're the reason I got up in the morning, because of the depression. I know I wasn't the same kind of mom that they could have had I not had that experience. So I know it did affect the whole family. It affects everyone. It's a trickle down thing. My kids lost their sibling, and so that's hard. And the depression and the trauma of it, I did meditation. I left the church. That I left behind long ago. I wanted nothing to do with that again. So a lot of meditation, some counseling, and in painting, I noticed that just painting in general is therapeutic, because it takes you out of your head, and it's more intuitive, and it's a creative release that I love. And then I realized, well, why not do something with that? Maybe that'll help me to deal with the situation. So I started painting about the subject. And then I designed a series of paintings that started with the church and its connection to adoption. And then it moved on through the series as I was healing from different aspects of the experience. So I have one painting, for example, that is full of birthday candles and dates. And it's women's name and the date that they lost their baby, their baby's birth date. And so people in the adoption community contributed to that painting. So all the names on that canvas are real and the birth dates are real. They are adoptees' birth dates on that canvas. So it's that kind of healing that helped me quite a bit, along with getting involved with the adoption groups online. The internet is just fabulous because that's where I could connect with people like me who had that same kind of experience in adoption. So that was very healing also. So the adoption series I call Silent Voices, and it's about the mom's experience, and part of it is the adoptee's experience because I am an adoptee light, I guess you could call me. So it's all of that experience got poured into these canvases, and it was very healing. It was very helpful for me, and it helped get the story out, because I felt like people needed to know, because I didn't know. I had no clue about the baby scoop era and that I was actually part of that until I read Ann Fessler's book called The Girls Who Went Away. And when I read that book, that was life-changing for me, because that's when I woke up and I realized, oh my God, this happened to millions of women, not just me. So that's when I connected with the community online, and it was incredible to find them. And that was also very, very healing for me.
Carlynne hopes that in the future, adoption can be guided by what we already know through numerous studies is the best for babies and birth mothers.
I just wish we saw the truth of what adoption is. I wish the media would share more. Because when we talk about our experiences online, we get dismissed immediately, we get shut down immediately. So people make assumptions about mothers, and I just wish that we weren't dismissed. Many times our comments, when we try to fight back, our comments are deleted, and it doesn't matter how kind you are or how diplomatically you say things, we get deleted because we're not the common narrative, the happy narrative that's always out there. So I would love for that narrative to change and for people to understand the truth of what's behind infant adoption and why it happens the way it does and how damaging it is.
Right. I mean, and it sounds like we feel like we've passed a point of the baby scoop era, and what you're indicating is big pieces of that remain.
They absolutely. It's just not called that. Exactly. It's the carrot on the stick thing. They just changed the tactics. That's all. You can't shame the mothers like you used to be able to shame us. Now shame is not as big a thing. So now it's more, well, this is what we can do for you. Now you can go on and go to college, have a great life, have more kids, all of that. But they don't tell the mother the truth. The scientific community has known the truth for decades about how damaging it is to separate a baby from his mother at birth, but they hide that. They don't want to share that. So basically, my thing is tell the truth. The truth is everything. Just tell the truth to the mothers. Tell the truth to the adopting couples. They're lied to just like the birth mothers are. So tell the truth and make certain things illegal, like pre-birth matching. There are certain things that absolutely should not be happening.
Even though adoption has left the baby scoop era, when birth mothers were hidden and babies were taken with no explanation, remnants of that process still exist. Carlynne is one of many voices encouraging us to do more to make sure birth mothers are supported and given the time they need to make the right decision for them and their babies. If you want to learn more about Carlynne and the resources she mentioned in this interview, head to my website, adoptionuncovered.com. And thank you.